Welcome, my lovely little online family, once again to our regular weekly Saturday gathering on the virtual settee of YouTooSpain. Today, we'll be talking to my friend and yours, Kasie Della-Rumball, from wealth management company Chase Buchanan. We'll chat about the dreaded inflation that's like a dark cloud on the horizon and see if we can give you some top tips on how to avoid it, whether you're moving to Spain or living here already. And I've always got something extra exciting for you at the end of our time together, so stick around for that. If you've slept in and you're watching the recording of the show afterwards, you can find the time codes and chapter headings for each of the answers you need in the video description below. But no, watch the whole chat. It's just quite a short show today, so there you go. Gather round. It's time for our little tune before we begin. Let's dance. Yes, indeed. Give thanks to the groovy wizard Lee Spreadbury for our little tune. Thanks, me darling. There's a link to his excellent YouTube channel below. Have a listen. He's one of the family, you know. Now, before I bring in our lovely guest, whose turn is it to clean the pool and buy me a coffee? It's you this week, isn't it? You remember how to do it, don't you, my lovely? There's a link in the video description. I know you're a bit naff with technology, aren't you? But it's easy once you get the hang of it. If you can't find that, then why not set up a regular payment on the Patreon website? Then you won't have to keep thinking about it. That's especially for close members of the family just like you. And that's where you get loads of extra videos and stuff. It's very groovy. And you can find the link on the website as well, YouTooSpain.com. Yes, remember I told you about that? Because you like reading as well, don't you? There's lots of information and articles for you and all of those links that you need to help you move to Spain so you can be over here with me around the proper swimming pool. So join the mailing list on there and I'll write to you every month. There's a newsletter that's just come out. All right, my lovely. Good. Don't forget the advice that I told you about on the Monday live chat. Have you seen that already? I'll save you a seat next Monday in the virtual cafe of cash next week, shall I? And we can chat all about exchanging your currency to euros safely and at the right time with Smart Currency Exchange. They're very good friends of the family. They've got a link below and it's on the website too, just for you. And you can have a free account with them. And that helps our lovely YouTooSpain family. Okay? Lovely, lovely. Next Monday, we're talking about what sort of things cause the exchange rates to change. And that fits in extremely well with our chat today and what's going on in the UK. So, usually we have some prizes to give away for the best questions and comments on the live chat. But as you may have gathered, today's live show has been recorded because both Kasie and I have commitments on Saturday. So put your questions this week in the comments below and I'll announce the prize winner on our Facebook group and page during the week. So without further ado, let's meet our wonderful guest. It's Kasie Della-Rumball. Hola, Kasie.
Hi, hola, Andrew. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. We're all sitting around the family pool on the family settee virtually all together. Is it comfy?
Oh, yes. It's a lovely day as well. Lovely
Brilliant,
day.
isn't it? So thank you for taking the time to come on the show again. It's lovely to have you back.
Lovely to be back. Thank you.
Good. And just before we begin, remind my lovely YouTooSpain family here what you do at Chase Buchanan.
Okay, so at Chase Buchanan, I am a private wealth manager. What that role actually entails is helping people to fiscally relocate to Spain, helping them understand exactly what taxes are due to be paid in Spain and maybe how to reduce them by the use of financial structuring. There's a little bit of an investment element, of course, that comes into that. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today. So I really help people with sort of holistic financial planning, life planning and retirement planning.
Holistic. That's very hippie. I like that. So last time you were here on the virtual settee, we were talking about pensions and investments. And today we're going to be focusing on inflation. It's still going to be something to do with pension and investments. But inflation, it's obvious from news reports, it's a growing problem. Prices are going through the roof. That's always a bad sign. And understandably, people are worried that their retirement plans might be in jeopardy. They might run out of money or their savings will be worth a lot less. So let's start by asking, what exactly causes inflation and why it's so high at the moment?
Okie dokie. So without teaching everyone to suck eggs, I mean, inflation is essentially a general increase in prices that results in a decline in the purchasing power of your money over time. So, I mean, inflation usually happens gradually over the course of time at a rate of between 2 and 3% per year. However, we have seen this increase dramatically in the last 12 months. And the reason behind that are sort of rise for two basic reasons. So consumers are buying a lot of goods and services, and the supply is limited. Now, why is that happening? I mean, we've kind of all kind of put COVID in the background now, but the 2 years we were all locked away with COVID, there was very little consumer spending going on, and people are now getting out and wanting to spend that money on holidays, on goods, on services, and so on. In addition, we saw a lot of factories close down during COVID as well. So in parts of Asia, they've still got an Omicron problem, and that kind of supply chain has been disrupted. Mm-hmm. More close to home, we've got to worry about this sort of Russian war in Ukraine. Russia is a sort of a massive supplier of oil, gas, metals, and Ukraine, of course, in sort of corn, wheat, etc. So the fact that those that supply has been disrupted has meant that those prices have gone up exponentially, which is contributing to inflationary pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. We've got all the transport strikes as well. So all of the goods, even if we could get a hold of the goods, we can't get them from place to place, can we?
Exactly.
There we go. Okay, so do you think this current level of inflation is here to stay, or will it get worse? Will prices go back down again?
It's anticipated that the inflation will sort of gradually decrease over the next couple of years. Mainly if we have a favourable outcome, like I say, to the Russia-Ukraine war, that's quite a bit of a factor. Major firms like Deloitte are advising that potentially we could see it abate by the end of 2023. So I mean, we've still got a little way to go with this inflation issue, but that the developed world should see deflation decrease sort of at the same rate, but the other more developed countries may hang on to it till later. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're sitting here in Europe, so one assumes that if we start to see inflation go down sort of in the UK, US, that will be replicated across Europe as well.
Mm. And the banks around the world are trying to hold on to it by putting interest rates up slightly and just hold it back.
Exactly. I mean, sort of, central banks really are kind of the puppet masters of the economy. That's their job, is to kind of manipulate how to spend money and what effect that has in general. So the reason that they sort of chosen to raise interest rates is to kind of take a bit of that excess cash out of society, try and sort of rein us in a little bit from all the free money and spending we were doing with COVID. Mm-hmm. So obviously people's mortgages are going up, their sort of loans and what have you are becoming more expensive, and that should follow that people have less money to spend on good services and more frivolous things that are contributing to inflation.
Mm-hmm. And of course, there's the big thing this week of a new chancellor and Boris and everything that's going on. I mean, we're recording this on Thursday. Goodness knows who's going to be the prime minister or the chancellor by the time this goes out on Saturday.
Exactly. I mean, it's certainly wild times in politics in the UK at the moment.
Yeah, and the conspiracy theorists would say there's all kinds of destabilization coming from, I don't know, Russia, China, wherever it is.
Indeed. You never know.
Yeah, crazy stuff. So then, well, it seems to me that we should all be doing something that I never did until very recently, which is financial planning. I've gone through my life as a musician and an actor, living in the moment with not a care for the future. And now I'm only a decade away from retirement, whatever that is. I never imagined I'd even make it that far. And I'm now starting to make plans in this time of crisis. So tell me, please, how can financial planning help me combat the cost of living crisis and inflation?
I mean, ultimately, preparation in advance of high inflation rates is the key. My two recommendations for people is that implementing good financial habits early allows for more flexibility and adaptability when you do get price rises, as we're seeing now. Mm-hmm. And you can avoid being caught off guard really by proactively sort of accounting for inflation if you do have financial products or investments, pensions in existence. Mm-hmm. That said, if you are coming into financial services or new to work with a financial planner, that's something that we can help you with and sort of help you moving forward. mean, the most important thing I would say is that being invested in the market over the long term, or staying invested in the market, usually does help beat inflation. The results from equity markets have typically outperformed inflation over the long term. And what we remember is that companies with pricing power can kind of typically actually ensure that their profits keep up with inflation. So one of the things we do is, look at, what kind of companies, what kind of equities we're invested in, to make sure that we're giving you the best possible chance in any equity exposure you've got within the portfolio to sort of manage the pressure against inflation.
That's great. By the way, if my lovely viewers here in the family, normally we'd have some of you on the live chat and able to ask questions, but ask them in the comments below. Obviously, as I say, this is a recording, and but we'll answer afterwards, and I can pass your questions on to Kasie for that. So give us a thumbs up at the moment as we go through and as you get information that's of value to you. So let's talk about investing now. So what should I or what shouldn't I invest in to help combat inflation? I was always told gold is the best bet during the hard times. Is that what I should be doing? Buying a big bag of gold?
It's all about a diverse portfolio, as you know, and actually commodities would form part of a balanced portfolio. Sometimes it's gold, sometimes it's something else. Obviously commodities have been quite one of the drivers for the inflation. But I've already mentioned equities and equity funds outperforming inflation over time. But what else do we use? At Chase Buchanan, we actually sort of include other asset classes like inflation-linked government bonds, real estate as kind of a standard within our model portfolios. For people of slightly higher net worth, we can actually bespoke portfolios as well. And when we do that, things that we can include there are total return funds, infrastructure, etc. I always think it's great to sort of have a discussion with your financial advisor about, whether you think that your portfolio is at risk of inflation. If that's something you're worried about, please do come and talk to us about it, because we'll be able to do an analysis of the actual asset allocation within the portfolio to check whether you have got adequate protection for inflation at this time. One thing that I would mention is that when we're putting together baskets of assets that sit inside our portfolios, they are all completely UCITS compliant. Now, for any of our viewers in Spain, UCITS compliant means that they're actually able to be used within a Spanish portfolio bond. And I know it's a bit of a different topic, but a Spanish portfolio bond actually provides you quite a lot of tax protection against capital gains, savings tax and income tax. So we're very well prepared and very well set up to help Spanish residents not only protect their investments against inflation, but also make sure they're compliant with Spain as well.
And it's a good idea to be looking at, this is something you've been talking to me about, making sure that you've got the best tax. You're not going to be overtaxed on the investments that you have.
Absolutely. One concern about inflation is that we're going to be running out of money. We've got less money. And so what we don't want to be doing is spending extra money that we don't need to on tax bills, when we could actually be using proper structuring to reduce the tax liability. Ergo, we're then sort of giving our residual monies the best chance to earn and the more chance we've got for our own spending power and increasing the value of our pension pot or savings pot in retirement.
Excellent. So with all of this talk of investment, we should really talk about what happens if I don't have money to invest. I'm sure some of my viewer on the settee here will be in the same boat as me. And how can I protect my standard of living in retirement? Okay,
so the worry for maybe a lot of your guests and also a lot of my clients is that inflation is going to keep going up, that their money is going to be eroded, that the standard of living they're used to is going to fall, and they might not even be able to maybe continue their life in Spain if it gets too top heavy. And then the good news here is that actually there are very few economists or policymakers actually believe that inflation is here to stay. So from that perspective, if people are unnecessarily worrying or are panicking, don't be too rash. Just kind of take a step back and sort of wait for things to cool off, because personally, I think we're going to sort of start to see a cooling off or some kind of change within the next 6 months. Things that you can look at. UK state pensions, the government have recently announced that they're actually going to inflation protect them for retirees to make sure this sort of cost of living rise isn't affecting them too greatly. They're going to bring back the triple lock in 2023 to make sure that everybody's as well protected as they can be against any kind of cost of living rises. It's also worth checking any sort of social security or government pensions that you've got, because if you've got any sort of UK government pensions from a civil service perspective, or private pensions may actually be protected against inflation. So one of the things we can help you with, if you do have any of those kind of sort of private pensions, is to actually go to the provider themselves and ask them, and look at the T's and C's to see sort of what guarantees been built in with that. Even if it's a small private pension, even if it's something that's in drawdown, we can still have a look for you and see, you know, whether it's got any sort of protection against inflation in there as well. So that's quite useful. Obviously, talk to a financial planner or an advisor. There is a misconception that we just sell products, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I think that the newer, younger generation of financial planners, I know I'm 40, but I count myself in that bracket.
Of course.
We actually help with, like I mentioned, holistic financial planning. We actually help with wealth building, budgeting, and so on and so forth. So we can help you identify areas of maybe tax savings that you're not taking advantage of, maybe any state benefits in Spain that you might be eligible for, depending on how long you've lived in the country, whether you've contributed to Social Security. And sort of even help you sort of, you know, budget moving forward for your lifestyle moving forward. They're ancillary services that I offer myself, and I'm sure my colleagues do as well. So be quite happy to speak to anybody, you know, on a bespoke fee basis with regards to sort of helping them just put their mind at rest as to whether, you know, that what they've got in their pot is going to last them, and what decisions they maybe need to take now or in the future.
Great stuff. Okay, then. Well, lots of great information so far. And again, give us a thumbs up if you've learned something useful to you out there. I'm going to keep this chat shorter than the usual Saturday because, as I say, usually we've got lots of live chat questions, and there's stuff from social media as well to answer. And of course, we can't do that today. So tell you what, let's look at one example situation before I round things up and see what advice you can give us on this, Kasie. So let's say I'm 55. And I'm on track to have put aside enough for a modest but workable retirement in 10 to 15 years' time. How much less might my savings and investments be worth in the face of current trends? You see, it's I'm concerned because I won't have enough time to bounce back if it gets really bad, and that higher prices are going to eat up my resources long before I die. What can I do?
What we need to do is sort of do a little bit of a deep dive analysis on what you've actually got in the pot, what that comprises of. Now at Chase Buchanan, we actually have an investment committee that can give you feedback on actually asset allocation within any of your pots, whether they're savings pots or pension retirement pots. Now, one thing is that, you know, if you've got if you have got anything other than a self-invested pension that you do yourself, you may not have great control over what's gone into that pension. So it'd be quite useful to have a look and see if that could be rebalanced for you to sort of make sure that you are well equipped, not only as a hedge against inflation, but also that you're in the right risk category. You're taking just enough risk to make sure that your pension is protected against inflation, but not so much that you could risk so much volatility that you could actually have the reverse, like you say, that you might sort of be in an unfavorable market situation when you need to draw down from. When we're looking at pension drawdown as well, we also have to bear in mind that we do work with sort of diverse and balanced portfolios. So there'll always maybe be one area of the market that's doing slightly better than the other. And so what we do is we use very smart strategies for pension income drawdown to make sure that we're always taking money from an area of profit rather than area of loss, and rebalancing where we need to over the course of time. One thing I'd say with financial planning is it's not a sort of one-stop appointment where we sort of speak to you the one time and that's your strategy for the next 10 to 15 years. Our service levels are extremely high at Chase Buchanan for good reason. We want to make sure that clients are long-term clients of ours, and we do regular reviews of your situation at your discretion, but usually quarterly, biannually or annually. So we do have great oversight about what is going on with your, you know, with your overall net worth and how that could affect the longevity of the income for as long as you live. So that's something we do cash flow modeling, we do income retirement calculators as well. So we've got a lot of resources to help you understand both in monetary terms, but also visually, how long potential monies could last.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. That's wonderful advice. I'm sure our lovely little family here on the virtual YouTooSpain city have got so much useful information from it. Is there anything else that you've got to add before we go?
I would just like to say that obviously some of these concepts can be frightening, can be fairly boring, but hopefully, when you do speak to an advisor, you can try and make them seem as digestible as possible, and take a bit of the fear factor out of some of the maybe sort of sensationalist headlines that are coming up around inflation, recession, etc. as well. So do come and speak to us. Our doors are always open. Drop me an email, Facebook Messenger, and I'll be happy to have a no obligation discussion with anybody that's interested.
Brilliant. And we'll put your details in the video description below this video if anybody wants to get in touch. So it's time to tell you what's going to be happening next week on the show. But first, let's give Kasie a huge virtual hug and a thank you for being so marvellous and helpful. And everybody wave her goodbye. I'm sure we'll see you in the near future. So come on, everybody, wave goodbye.
Oh. Thanks, Andrew.
Excellent. What a lovely, lovely chat. And I have to tell you, I'm recording this part only 10 minutes after saying goodbye to Kasie. And in that time, they've just announced on the news that UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is resigning and the pound has shot up against the euro. So I'll be chatting all about that on the Monday show. So everything's changing, and appropriately next week on our Cosy Family Settee we were going to have our famous friends Anthony and Ian from the UK TV show A New Life in the Sun, talking about their move from France to the south of Spain and setting up their new B&B just down the road here. But they've had to postpone until September, so next week's guest is a bit of a surprise. I'll announce who it's going to be during the week. It could be something to do with removals. How exciting. So if I don't see you in the virtual Cafe of Cash on Monday, I'll see you next Saturday at our regular time of 9 o'clock if you're in the UK or Ireland, or 10 o'clock if you've managed to get to Spain already, or 4 o'clock in the morning if you're on the east coast of America. Sorry it's so early, you guys. Whatever time we broadcast, someone in the world gets the short straw. My lovely wife Liz says hi, by the way. She says don't forget to join in her free virtual yoga and meditation sessions on her YouTube channel, YouTooYoga. The link is below with all the other ones. So that's all for this week. Someone push the vacuum cleaner around, there's good lads, and wipe up those wine stains. Honestly, can't take you lot anywhere. Right, let's head into the virtual Spanish pool. It's getting hot out here. Peace and love. Oh, shall we have one more little dance before we go? Bye.